Ready to roll. Okay. Well, I see that we do have a few people joining us on Clubhouse. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we've done this a couple of times now. We're going to continue experimenting with it. So we are going to be streaming our audio from our conversation here in our LabCoatAgents webinar today through Clubhouse. All right. So if you're joining us on Clubhouse, thank you so much for being here. We will also take some questions after the webinar on Clubhouse. All right. So if you're here on the webinar with us, I've got a link for you. You can come join us. If you do have a membership or if you have access to that app. All right, so let's go ahead and get into today's topic. This is a fun one. This is one that we have done. I think we did this about 4 or 5 months ago. It's definitely a popular webinar. And I will tell you, if you saw that one, we have some new tricks for you. All right, a couple of these are the same because they were so good and so useful that we wanted to repeat them. But a few of them are new. We actually found some cool stuff to share with you today. So we're going to run through them. We got 10 to cover, so there's quite a bit to go over today. And we will show you as much as we can. There's a couple different, sort of hacks and tricks with different products, things like that. And we'll make sure to go over that as well. So one thing I want to mention, we are doing something a little bit different today, other than the Clubhouse part. We've done that a couple times. We are going to be giving away a lapel microphone, right? So I've got the microphone here. It's a Pop Voice PV510 Plus. So please stick around to the very end of today's presentation, and we will be giving this away to one of you that was gracious enough to join us for today's conversation, right? So make sure you stick around for a chance to win that.
Nick, is that a giveaway only on the webinar section, on the Facebook Live, or on the Clubhouse section? Where can we win that?
Well, I'm going to have to keep it simple this time. It's going to be on the webinar. All right. So this is a little bit of an incentive to join us live on the webinar in the future. And if people like this and we have some fun with it, we'll continue doing it. It's just logistically, I think, a little too hard to give it away to everybody since we are streaming in multiple locations. But if you guys like this and we want to, maybe we'll give away some other items over the coming weeks. And then maybe we can open it up a little bit as well, but we'll do it just for today. People who are here on Zoom with us will have a chance to win.
I see a couple of people we know in Clubhouse: Melanie, Julia, Ronnie, Sam, Marlon. Just wanted to say hi to you guys.
Yeah, Melanie's new to Clubhouse. Welcome, Melanie.
Let's go.
Oh, let's roll. All right. Well, here's number one. For those of you that are watching, you've already seen the slide for a few seconds, so you know where we're going with this. But for those of you listening to audio only, our number one hack for today is trimming the beginning and the end of your video. All right. Now, let me just take a second to talk about why this is such a helpful thing to be able to do. It's very easy. You can typically do it directly through your phone camera app or in the gallery on your phone. But the thing about this is that when you go to record a video, especially if you're recording a selfie video, or even worse is if you have a tripod and you need to reach out and hit the record button on your phone, a lot of times there's two problems there. Number one is that you oftentimes catch a brief recording of yourself basically releasing the record button, right? So you've probably seen this before where you see someone's videos start with them kind of pulling their hand back, and that's not good. And the second part here is that when you first start recording, a lot of times, and I've seen this happen to a lot of folks, it can throw you off a little bit because as you're hitting the record button, you're also trying to start talking to the camera. And that can create sort of some tension in the first 1 or 2 sentences in your video. So this is a super simple thing you can do. What I'm going to suggest that you think about here is when you first go to record, just simply hit the record button and don't start doing anything at all. All right. Hit the record button, get yourself situated, calm down a little bit, then smile, right? There are some videos where you're not going to necessarily want to smile, but for most videos, you're going to want to start out by smiling. It's going to make you look very inviting. It's going to make the video look that much more interesting to watch, and then start delivering your lines, right? So once you get completely situated, and obviously you are recording that 5 or 10 seconds as you get situated, but because you're going to be able to trim the video, you're going to get rid of all of it, right? And then at the end, the same thing, right? When you finish your lines, smile at the camera for an extra second or two, and then reach out and hit the stop button. Then what you do, all right, is you go on your phone, and I would actually recommend just go ahead and try this right now while we're talking about it, because it's worth sort of figuring out how your particular phone handles this. But you record a video, so if you want to take it out, point the camera at yourself and record 5 or 6 seconds, that's all you really need for the demo purposes. And then you're going to open up that video in the gallery, right? So if you've just recorded your video and you have it on your phone, I'm going to pull up mine just so I can follow along here. You hit record, you hit stop, and then usually in the bottom left-hand corner, you have the little preview icon with the video that you just recorded, all right? So if you go into that and you're looking at the little preview of the video you just made, if you're on an Android, you're gonna hit the pencil icon, right? And I'm particularly, just so everybody understands, I'm on a Galaxy S21. So you just click on the pencil icon, that's the edit button. And then Jeff or Tristan, where do you push if you're on an iPhone? Just make sure we're getting the right details.
The iPhone just does everything for you.
It just happens automatically. Everything's
Is that what
perfect.
you're referring to? How the iPhone is the best? Is that what you were saying?
Sure, if that's your response, if your response is
Jeff, how do you do it?
that's fine. I mean, I'm fine with that response.
You totally threw me off there. Which button?
Well, it hits here on this slide. So the response, I guess, is just, it happens automatically if you hit the edit button. So yeah, it just says edit. I mean, that's it.
Yes,
it's very simple on the iPhone, right? So once you open the phone up, or sorry, the video up, you'll see an edit button. It's a pencil if you're on Android. And then all you have to do, so you're seeing on the left-hand side of the screen right now, a little example of what this looks like. And for those of you listening, you should see a preview of your video. And then below it, there should be sort of the play bar. It's called the timeline, right? And so you should, on either end of it, there's a little bit of a bar and sort of a little kind of arrow looking icon, right? And so what I want you to do is just hold your finger down on the beginning of the video and drag that little bar over a little bit, right? And what you should see happen is that the video starts sort of moving, right? The audio is probably not playing, but you're seeing it move through the video. And what you want to do is look for the point where you started smiling, and then look for the point where your lips start moving, and then bring it back just slightly right before your lips start moving, right? And what that's going to do is that's going to cut everything out before you started talking, right? So now, because you took the time to kind of calmly get situated and get your thoughts together before you actually started delivering, you're going to have a really nice, clean beginning to your video. And you're going to cut everything else out, right? The same thing applies to the end of it. You want to go to that bar on the very end of the video timeline and drag it in. Find the part where you were smiling right after you stopped talking, and then leave it there, right? And that's going to clean up the video. And then when you're done, you want to just click on save or done. Some phones are going to ask you if you want to save this as a new clip, all right? So if you want to save the original version, then save it as a new clip. If you don't care about the original version, if you just want the one you just cleaned up a little bit, then just save it, right? And it's going to replace the original video without that little bit of an intro and outro, all right? So what that means is that for any video you make moving forward, there's really no excuse anymore to have a messy beginning or end, because that process takes 15 seconds, maybe a minute or two, if you got to go in and finagle with it just a little bit. And that's going to clean up your video really nicely. The one thing I will say as we move on to tip number 2 is as you do this, if you have a long video, so if you record something that's like a few minutes long or longer, this might become a little bit harder, all right? You might need to actually take this over into like a Viva video editing app, and then you can zoom in on the timeline and you can be really precise, all right? So just remember that if you make a longer video and you're having trouble with the trimming, I would switch over to Viva Video and you'll be good to go. Same process there.
And
right?
Nick, there is a question that asked if you can trim or you can cut a middle. The answer is no from your phone editing feature. So you'd have to take it out to a Viva Video, or you have everybody, if you have an iPhone, you have iMovie automatically on your phone. You could take it to iMovie and you can cut from there. I was gonna add, Nick, too, that this is more important than I think a lot of you realize. And it's such a simple thing to do. To me, your videos look very amateur when I can see you going in to push play or push stop. And just this slight change, this slight edit that is very easy, as we're proving here, can make all the difference. And if you really want to take it up another level, go to an iMovie, go to a Viva Video, go to a Kapwing, which are all editing softwares, and create jump cuts throughout the video, which means you're just cutting out your ums, you're cutting out your mistakes, it's really very easy, and anybody can learn to do it. And one more bonus tip, you can do this in TikTok too, and not enough people do it. I see way too many fingers going in to push play and push stop. And there's an editing feature in TikTok as well that you can edit each cut of your video.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think every 1/10 of a second matters, right? So even if you're cleaning it up just a little bit and you're only cutting out 1/3 of a second or something, I mean, that's going to get more people engaged, interested, because they're going to see you start talking right as they scroll past the video, and that has a huge impact. So, all right, cool. Moving on to number 2. Now, this is one of the new ones. And when I first saw this, on the one hand, I thought that's ridiculous. And then I also thought that's really smart, depending on if you're in a situation where you might need this. And this is, what if you ever want, I've always wondered about this. What if you want to record both vertically and horizontally at the same time, right? Now, I would imagine that at some point in the future, we'll probably have phones with special cameras in them that actually do this for us. But we're kind of at this point right now where we're sort of 50-50 between landscape video and vertical video, right? Portrait is what it's traditionally called, right? So you've got the situation where you got YouTube, you've got your more traditional sort of Facebook on the computer, all that kind of stuff. And then on the other hand, you've got TikTok, you've got Snapchat, Instagram, or even Facebook mobile, obviously people using the app. And so there are situations where you want a vertical video and others where you want a landscape. And so I didn't make this up. We found this tip online, but it's basically just to rubber band 2 phones together and then record through both of them at the same time, right? It seems ridiculous. It looks a little bit ridiculous, but it actually works pretty darn well. So you can see in this picture here, you just take 2 rubber bands. You just sort of take one and loop it past the other, and then you attach one rubber band to one end of the phone and then the other to the other, and then you put the secondary phone, obviously between the rubber bands and the first phone. And you can get, depending. So we did this initially with the new iPhone 12 and then my phone, where the cameras are actually off towards the side. And we were able to line it up so that the 2 sets of cameras were pretty close to each other. So you wouldn't even necessarily look like you're not looking into the lens. Now, this is probably more for, things that are a little bit more active, right? So if you're going to be, standing in front of the camera and, moving around, dancing, that kind of stuff, this is where this is going to be particularly useful. And then obviously also just situations where things are live, right? Where they're just happening live and you're not going to be able to recreate the scenario and re-record it, right? So this one, it's probably not going to be useful for a lot of you because you're not to this stage yet. But if you're in a position where you're trying to figure out how do I create as much content as I possibly can, but still make sure that it's sort of optimized for the platforms where I'm sharing it, this is something you could do easily. And my other sort of reluctance to share this tip initially was, well, I have a lot of old phones laying around. I don't know if everybody else does, but I was thinking about, I was like, I think at this point, a lot of us probably do have at least one old phone sitting around somewhere in a drawer, or everybody in our house has a phone, right? So we could probably borrow one and utilize it for just a couple minutes. So the way we have it rigged up here in this picture is we rubber band the 2 phones together, and then we put it on a simple tripod stand with a phone adapter, and there you go, right? So you can literally use tip number 1, because you're going to have to hit record on both of these to later trim these videos down and make them, perfectly optimized for their platform. So don't worry about, hitting record at the same time or anything like that. Just hit the record button on both phones, go do your thing. Now you've got both versions of it recorded and you're good to go, right? So there you go. Kind of a weird one, but I could see that being really useful for certain people, all right? Now, this next one we're going to show you, this is one that is something you can do just sort of built into the phone, and at least in any phone model that I've seen so far, and that is to turn on the grid lines in your camera to properly align your shots, all right? This is another thing. So, we're talking about, Jeff was talking about one of his pet peeves, like seeing people's fingers in the camera when they first record. This is one of my pet peeves, which is people being really poorly framed in their videos, right? So there's a rule in photography, and it basically also applies to video. It's called the rule of thirds, right? And the idea is you draw 2 lines vertically, one, at the 1/3 marks across the screen, and 2 lines horizontally, again, splitting the screen into thirds. And at the intersection of those lines, so there's 4 intersections, there's 4 spots where those lines cross over each other. Those are where the eyes are naturally drawn, all right? So when we look at a video or a picture, any sort of image, our eyes are sort of naturally drawn to those particular locations. I'm not even really sure why, but it's something that's been pretty well documented over the years. And so when you're trying to do professional photography in particular, you really want to line up the things you're trying to focus on those lines. And the one place that this gets messed up more than any other, I would say, is in selfie videos, all right? there are a lot of people that will record a selfie video where their head is in the bottom half of the video. And what I've seen happen a lot of times is what ends up being behind them and above their head is often the ceiling. All right. So they have the ceiling sort of, and you get like a ceiling fan up there and sometimes a light. And then you've got the crease above them because the wall hits the ceiling behind them. And then their head's sort of in the bottom half. And it doesn't look good, right? It's not a very professional way to frame yourself. And it's also very distracting, right? Because, now we're looking at the big white space above you, or God forbid, there's a stain on the ceiling or something like that, right? So what you want to do is you actually want your eyes or even your mouth, you want, whatever part of your face it is that people are going to be focusing on should be on that top of those two lines, right? So again, the same rule applies when you flip your phone vertically. You want to have it lined up that way. So you can turn these on. What you're going to want to do, this is the instructions for the iPhone that you're seeing here on the screen. You're going to need to go into your camera settings and you're just looking to turn on the grid, right? So it's going to be called a grid and you just want to switch it on, all right? I honestly think you should just leave it on. I mean, it might bother you. So if you want to turn it off at some point, just because it puts the 4 lines on your screen and you don't like that, you can certainly go in and turn it off at a later date, but it's going to automatically just make you a better videographer because you're going to be thinking a little bit more about how you're actually framing your shots by having that turned on. All right. So pretty easy to do in both the iPhone. And then I don't know if we have the Android settings on here.
It's easier on the iPhone. I heard.
It's always easier on the iPhone. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to throw that in there.
No, it's actually not. I mean, it's called Gridlines. It's the same. It's equally easy on both, Tristan. All right. So we'll have to share this one.
Okay.
It's called Gridlines on the Android, right? So it's the same thing. Just go into camera settings. On my phone, at the very least, you can go to the top right corner at the gear icon, click it, and then just switch the grid lines to on. And then just remember that. Remember just that the intersection of those lines is going to be where people are placing their focus, and your head, anytime you do a selfie video, should be on the top of the two lines. All right. You don't necessarily need to be one side or the other because it's a lot more, it's much more narrow because it's vertical. But please put your head in that top section. Don't have yourself at the very bottom of the video and it'll look much, much nicer. All right. Another just kind of related to this is when you're doing a selfie video, it's typically going to be a little bit more flattering if you try to keep the phone at least at sort of eye level or up. That's going to eliminate the possibility of getting the ceiling in the shot. And it's also going to, just like you take a selfie, if you want your chin to be stretched out and you want your face to look lean, it's good to have the phone up in the air. If you go down, which is what people end up naturally doing, that can also be good if you want to look, strong and powerful, right? So when we shoot from below upwards, it sort of creates that sense of power or position, right? Okay, here's another new one. So if you came to this presentation about 4 or 5 months ago, this is definitely a new one for you. And this one is, again, these are hacks, right? So these are pretty ridiculous kinds of things. This is a flashlight inside of a trash bag to create a soft light that you can use for your videos or for your photos, right? So this is one, there's a couple scenarios where I think this actually works out really well. And for those of you listening, we have some pictures of what this looks like on the screen here, where I'm holding a flashlight pointing at myself, and I'm also holding the flashlight inside the bag. And what you're going for here, and all this really is it's just diffused light, all right? So just a general rule of thumb is you don't want to have a spotlight pointing at yourself when you're making a video. You want the light to be sort of evenly spread out as much as possible. And so anytime you can put some sort of especially white material, a thin white material, so think like, a sheet or paper, or in this case, a plastic trash bag, anytime you can put that between you and the light source, you're actually going to get much more flattering light. And so I tried this out. We just took these pictures earlier today. And obviously you can see when you have the light shine directly on your face, it's very bright and it just looks absolutely terrible. Part of my face is not even visible because it's so bright. And then the rest of my face just has a bunch of shadows on it, versus when I use the trash bag and I hold it up to my left-hand side, I get a nice, even, smooth light over my face. And then the other thing that's cool about this, and obviously you're not going, the way you would use this is you would probably have like a selfie video going in one hand, and then you would hold the light in the trash bag in the other hand, right? So, in this case, I had somebody else take this picture. So you're not going to see the trash bag in the shot. So I don't want you to think, okay, you're going to see yourself holding this big trash bag over here next to your head. This is obviously one that's going to be something you do more in a pinch. If you don't actually have lights with you. But what we found is that it's going to look better than shining the light directly on your face by far, but it also looks better than the camera flash. And the reason for that is that the camera flash, for one, is it's a very small point of light. And actually, sometimes when you use a selfie camera, it's a better flash because you get the whole screen lit up and it's a little bit more diffused. But the other part is you can't control the direction of it, right? And a lot of times to get interesting looking lighting, you actually want to have a little bit more light on one side of your face than another. If you look at a lot of movies, almost everything is lit in that way because it's a little bit unnatural to see someone's face, directly lit up from the front, because it's just typically not how we see people, right? So you'll see in a lot of our videos, usually one side of my face versus the other is just a little bit lighter to create just a little bit of contrast. And so with the trash bag, you can do that because you can move it anywhere you want. So actually, I've been playing around with it for a few minutes. I was able to find a couple angles where I felt like I looked even better than I would with just the normal camera flash. So all right, so here's number 5, and number 5 is an oldie but a goodie in this case, and that is the cup, right? So we got the cup here. This is the red cup with a slit in it. All right. Now it doesn't seem like much, but this is particularly useful for 2 scenarios. Number 1, this is a tabletop tripod. All right. So here's all I did, and I don't know how well you can see it on camera, but let me just describe it a little bit. You take a cup. It's probably easier to do with a paper cup. In this case, it's just a throwaway sort of solo brand. It's probably even an off-brand cup here. And then what you do is you just cut 2 slits about maybe 1/2 inch apart from each other across the bottom. And then both of those slits go down the side about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. And then that's it, right? And so then you kind of remove this piece. So you'll have, a slit on both sides and across the bottom of the cup that's about 1/2 inch wide, right? And then what you do is you just pop your phone into it. All right. So you just drop your phone right into that slot. Depending on how you cut it and the size of the phone, you might be able to go both vertically and horizontally, which I'm able to do with my phone because this phone is ridiculously massive. So it does fit there. And that's one thing you can do, right? So again, these are all hacks, right? So this is not, if you have a tabletop tripod, you're going to want to use it, but there's a secondary use for this, which was actually pretty cool once I realized it. And that is that you can use it as a slider as well. All right. So you can put this on a countertop or a table. You can have your phone in it and you can just literally slide it from one side to the other. Right. And you might say to yourself, like, where is that actually useful? Is that something I'm going to be doing much? Well, if you're in a home and you're trying to do a listing video, right? If you're trying to capture anything that's static, anything that's not itself moving is very boring, right? There's nothing to it. And like Michael, our chief creative officer, talks about all the time, if something's not moving and then your camera as you film it is also not moving, then it's basically just a picture. You're just sort of taking a picture, right? Even if you're sort of moving the camera, panning a little bit, you can do that with a picture. You can take a photo and just crop in and then scan across it, right? So anytime you make a video, you always want to add additional motion because it's going to distinguish it from a photo. So that gives you something like if you want to highlight, if there's a nice stove top in the home or something like that, you can slide the phone using this cup and you can create this really cool glide shot that actually, is not all that easy to do without other equipment.
Tiffany makes me laugh all the time. Tiffany's saying you could tie a string to it and slide it around to follow you.
You could. If you want to have a low ground shot of yourself, you could have a dragon behind you everywhere you go, right? So good. All kinds of ways to use this stuff. I mean, and honestly, this is the kind of thing that is ridiculous, and then you try it, and you're like, wow, that actually worked. I don't own a piece of I don't have a slider in my house anywhere, right? So it's just not. I don't even own one, so I can do shots I couldn't have, and the funny thing, I mean, honestly, it sounds like kind of a joke, but it's like anything you can do to vary the way your videos look, just anything that looks different. And so several of the things you're going to see throughout today's presentation are just like that. They're just ways to create a different look to the videos you're making. And this is why I like time lapses. I'm always talking about time lapses. People give me crap about it. But I make time lapse videos and they get hundreds of views, it's like, why not make them? Because they just look different. Anything that stands out because it looks different is going to get more attention automatically, right? So sometimes shooting from weird angles or doing things where the camera's moving in strange ways, that's just going to automatically get you some bonus attention. All right. I do want to remind everybody here that we are streaming both through actually 3 different places today, right? We got Zoom, we got Facebook, and then we also have Clubhouse. If you joined us on Clubhouse, thank you so much for coming through. We are doing a presentation on 10 phone camera hacks that you will wish you had known. We've been through 5 so far. We have 5 more to cover. And then afterwards, we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A live for anybody that wants to join us on Clubhouse. We're halfway through, so I'm going to take a quick break and just remind everybody that we have a whole bunch. And I think we've got at this point like 35 of these free video lessons, all right? So in Business Video School, we teach real estate agents and other business professionals how to utilize video in your business. And so to give you sort of a sample of what we do and to just provide some free value, we actually went through and created a series of video lessons. Sorry, my phone, my computer keeps dinging. I apologize for that. But we created a series of free video lessons that cover a whole bunch of different topics, right? So we've got topics on how to frame yourself. We talked about that a little bit today. How to go live on Facebook, how to have good lighting, how to have good audio in your videos, what to talk about when you're on camera, how to make sure you're getting in front of the right people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go into all the topics today. But if you want to get those free video lessons, what you need to do is just send a text message to the phone number 44222. And the body of the text should just be learn video without any spaces. So LEARNVIDEO, no spaces, nothing else in the body of the text. You send that on over, and then it's going to ask you what your email address is. Once you give us your email, you are going to be on that list and you'll start receiving our free video lessons. If you're on Clubhouse right now, just click on my face, go to my bio, and all that information is in my bio as well. All right, let me, somehow I turned on Siri and she's listening to everything I say. So I got to turn, there it is. There's the X out. Okay, we're good to go.
Hey, Nick, we had one question from somebody about the grid lines. And I think the question, gosh, there's been so many jokes made now. I got to scroll up 10 million. Can you explain the grid line usage? Like, I guess, why would you use it?
So that you're in the right spot in the video. So the grid lines are they're just basically a general rule to follow. So when you have, you got 2 lines across, 2 lines vertically, you want your focal point. You want, for instance, if you're in the frame, and you can see, like, looking at my video right now, like, I'm lined up that way. My eyes are basically on the 1/3 line here, right? And so that's what you always want to try to do. You always want to have sort of the focal point of what you're trying to draw attention to on those lines, because that is where people's eyes are naturally drawn, right? So if you don't line up with those lines, you're now working against the way people are naturally watching their video content, and it just makes them feel uncomfortable, right? It's part of why when I see people in the bottom half of their selfie videos, it sort of bothers me, right? So hopefully that answers your question, but let me know if there's anything else we can help you with.
No, and I want to say one thing too. For everybody who's on Facebook or in Clubhouse who's not in Zoom, you're missing out on all kinds of entertainment in the chat.
I don't even see a lot of what goes on in the chat. I don't know if I want to.
Today.
I'm only here for the comments.
Good.
So good, so good.
Oh, man. All right, next we got hack number 6 here. Hack number 6 is the flip transition, all right? So this is one of the things that I'm trying to work a little bit more on in my videos, is to just sort of create, Jeff talks about jump cuts all the time. So basically just having, different cuts throughout your video where you're, in a different location, or you could, change an item of clothing, or, basically you're just sort of adding some variety to the visuals. And so this is one that is very, very easy to do. I created a quick demonstration of it, which you're seeing here on the screen. But for those of you that are listening, all we're doing, and for those of you watching too, it'll be helpful to know how to do this. And actually, why don't you, if you can, just take your camera out right now. So what you're going to do is you record a selfie video, right? And at some point, whenever you want there to be a transition, so probably one of the easiest ways or one of the best ways to utilize this is, you know, if you're making several points throughout your video, you're just going to use this as a way to transition between the different points, right? So you record the first point, and then right as you're done talking, you just flip the camera down in front of you, right? So in other words, the camera is seeing you, and then it's seeing the ceiling because it's being flipped backwards, all right? And technically, you can do this any direction. You could flip down, you could flip to the side, you know, whatever it is. I like to go up or down because usually there's sort of just a neutral image in that case, right? So if I flip the camera, if it's in my hands, if I flip it forward, I'm showing the camera the ceiling, all right? And so what you do is you flip it forward and then you immediately stop, right? And in fact, if you don't want to have to edit anything, you could just literally flip it forward, hit pause. And then when you go to make your next clip, you start recording with the ceiling on camera, right? So you have the phone still flipped out like this, you hit record, and then you flip it up and start delivering your lines, right? Now, if you stay in the same spot and you don't change any of your items of clothing or anything, then that's going to not be all that interesting, right? People will just be confused why you dropped the phone for a second, but it's really cool when something changes, right? So if you're watching this little demo clip we made in the presentation right now, you're seeing that, and I didn't actually change locations. I just switched the backdrop that I had behind me, but I go from having a neutral white background, and then all of a sudden after I flip the phone back, I've got my current background behind me, right? So it's just visual variance. So anything we can do in a video, especially a longer video, where we can create a look that just sort of feels different, something that's just going to look, that's going to catch somebody's attention, right? I mean, you could even do this where, you know, you flip it and you come back and only one minor thing has changed, right? Because just little things that people might catch, but you don't acknowledge, right? So maybe I would do it and then I flip it back and then, you know, something on the countertop behind me has moved positions, like that kind of stuff, right? You're just looking for stuff that's going to get people to wait, you know, what just happened? Did I miss something there? And then they're going to stick around for a few more seconds, right? So we talk all the time about the hook and the first 3 seconds being super important to your video. This also applies throughout it, right? I mean, especially when you get into platforms like YouTube where you're making videos that are, you know, many minutes long, you got to continue hooking people. And so it doesn't have to always be what you say. It can very easily just be different types of transitions you're doing. And if you do 3 or 4 of these flips throughout a video and you break up the locations where you're shooting, I guarantee you're going to get people to stick around longer and watch more of it.
I just started following a guy on TikTok. His name is Kyle Nutt, Nutt. His TikTok name is Kyle Nutt 117. And all he creates is videos about transition, like with a cell phone. And it's incredible. I'm completely hooked on it. I want to try this kind of stuff because he's got some really neat transitions. And so if you're on TikTok, I recommend going to follow this guy.
Kyle Nutt, you said. All right. Yep. I'll have to check him out. Yeah,
I'll put it in the chat.
Great. Love it. Yeah. One of the other ones I've seen that seems to be popular is just putting your hand in front of the camera. And I think I've seen you do that at least one, Jeff.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one too. Cool. Number 7, this one is an oldie but a goodie as well. And that is to lock the focus and the exposure on your camera. All right. So this is one of those things that I think a lot of people just don't even realize their phone can do. And it can be very useful. So this is one where it's helpful to follow along. So if you want to take your phone out and open up your camera and sort of experiment with this a little bit, what I want you to do is point the camera at something across the room. And it really shouldn't matter if you're doing a photo or a video. And then hold your finger down on an item across the room. And do it for about 2 to 3 seconds, right? And what you should see if you do this correctly is that like a little lock icon or a little circle or something that turns yellow, you know, it depends on the phone you're on, should pop up on the screen, right? What has just happened after doing that is that you've now locked the focus of the camera, okay? So you've locked the focal distance that the camera is focused on, right? Now what I want you to do is now that it's locked, I want you to point the camera at something much closer to you. All right. So for instance, if you're looking at your computer screen right now, maybe you want to lock on something across the room and then point it at your computer. And what you'll notice is that when you point it at something right in front of you, it's going to be blurry now. All right. If it doesn't blur, if it refocuses, then you didn't lock your focus. Right. And then usually if you just tap somewhere on the screen, it'll turn it off. So it's really easy to use, right? You just hold your finger down. If you do the same experiment in reverse, hold your finger down on something close. and then point the camera across the room, you'll see the opposite effect. Now the stuff across the room will not be focused and the things in front of you will. Now, that's how you do it, right? Why is this particularly useful? Well, if you have a completely brand new phone, this isn't going to be nearly as important because the phones have gotten a lot smarter. But if you have an older phone model, right? And I had an S9, a Galaxy S9 before I upgraded to this S21. I did actually use this fairly often. What happens is that the autofocus in some of these older phones isn't nearly as good. And so it keeps trying to refocus. And if you're like me, and especially if you talk with your hands a lot, what you're basically telling that camera when it's recording you is to keep trying to adjust its focus and its brightness to your hands, right? So as your hands are in front of the camera, it's trying to focus on your hands. As your hands go down, it's trying to focus on your face. And it creates this effect where it almost seems like the video gets brighter and darker over and over and over again, right? And so if you've ever seen that happen, this is how you can avoid that problem. If you just simply go in and lock your focus, and it depends on the phone, but many phones will do this with both the rear-facing camera and the selfie camera, right? So you can even do it with the camera that points back towards you from the front of the phone, right? So it's just going to eliminate that problem. If you have a more recent phone, something that came out in the past year or two, a lot of those actually have LiDAR built into them now. And so they're a lot more accurate with their autofocus, and you won't see that happen nearly as much. But that is a super helpful tip if you are using a phone that's just a little bit older than that.
I hate to do this. But using another TikTok hack that I learned, when you lock that in and then you go into slow-mo. So if you if you lock into like like you're out in the garden or something and a flower, and then you go to slow-mo and then run your camera like through a flower bed, it's a pretty incredible video.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you lock it first and then you switch to...
Yeah, you lock it. So you're locking it in on your hands, which means you're kind of zooming in. So like you
yeah.
really get it. And then you run a slow-mo through, like, this is what it was. It was through like a flower bed. And it almost feels like you're in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It's pretty cool.
That was a great movie, by the way. I really enjoyed that movie with, I forgot his first name, something Moran.
Rick Moranis.
Rick Moranis. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding. You win.
I win. What do I get?
The question on what does AEAF stand for? That's auto exposure, auto focus. So it automatically does that for you as well. So
right, because those are both automatically focusing, and then when you lock them, it turns the two of those off together, right?
Nick, did you go and talk about how when you press the button and it auto focuses on one dimension? Did you also talk about how when you press it on the side, you can go up and down on the lighting?
Right. So yeah, that's a good point. So when you lock it in, once you lock it in, a lot of times the phone will give you a brightness indicator and then like a little bit of a bar. On my phone, it's right below the circle. And on some, I think it's on the side. But you can actually hold down on that brightness indicator and drag it up and down. And then you can customize the brightness for the video. So once you've locked in the focus and the exposure, then it's not automatically going to adjust that anymore. So you're going to have to tell it if you want it to be brighter or darker, right? So great question. Now that's not, I would imagine in most cases, once you lock, your brightness is probably locked in the way you want it. But if you don't like it, then that is one way that you can continue to make some changes there. All right. Cool. We got 3 more left. We're making good time here. Number 8. And this one is, this might be my favorite just because of how easy it makes things when recording videos, especially selfie videos. And that is just here. Let's just, again, follow along at home if you don't mind real quick, because it's always best to practice these things. So open up your selfie camera like you're going to record a video. And this will technically also work for photos, right? So just keep that in mind. And what I want you to do is just hit one of the volume buttons. All right, so you got the video camera pointed at yourself. You go ahead and hit the volume button. And then after a couple of seconds, go ahead and hit it again. And assuming you have, one of the many phones I've tested this on, that should have recorded and stopped, right? So you should have actually started recording a video and then stopped recording when you hit the volume button again. And it really, I believe it does not matter which way you push on the volume pad. So that is great, because what that's going to do is, now we talked about trimming at the beginning, because I still think there's lots of cases where you should just go ahead and trim the beginning and end of the video. And even if you use the button to start recording, you can still trim. But the nice thing is now I can hold my phone up to do a selfie video. I can get ready, get positioned, and I can just hit it with the hand that's already on the phone, right? I can just reach over and hit that button really easily and start recording. And then I can also stop. And it's going to make it basically, this is the reason we did the trimming first, is because I think this is for slightly more advanced video producers, right? So if you've been making videos before and you're comfortable sort of getting started right at the beginning and hitting that stop button right as you end, then this is a great way to do it, right? So that also works for pictures, which I think is great because you know, a lot of times when I'm taking a picture, it's much easier to just hit the volume button when a lot of times my finger's already on it than it is to try to push on the screen. And I've also found that I'm actually less likely to shake the phone when I use the volume button to take the picture, right? So that's number 8 for you. Number 9, and I think this is one that Jeff, you might be able to chime in for us on, because I think you may have both of these products sitting there in your office somewhere, but that is to use a Bluetooth remote to start and stop recording, right? So again, this is another one of those where, you know, we're kind of talking on this point over and over again. Having a clean beginning and end to your video is a really fundamentally basic thing you need to do. But this one I really like because you can actually get away from the camera. You can have some distance between you. You could have another person that's doing a video with you, and this is going to allow you to start and stop the recording. The same thing works for pictures, right? So this is a product-based tip. Obviously, it's not something that's built into your phone. But a lot of these devices come with these little remotes. So Jeff, do you have either one of yours handy sitting there? If you could show it or talk about it for just a second.
No, and I'll tell you why, because I don't use them. I use the editing feature that we talked about earlier, so I don't need it because I just push start, walk away, and then edit myself, you know, from doing that.
Fair enough. Yeah. So you don't always need this stuff. Here's just an example of what they look like. This is the Fujitech one. They're just tiny little remotes. I mean, that's all they do. They literally just take the picture. So you connect it to your phone with Bluetooth. You hit the button, it takes a picture, or in our case, since we're focused on video, it's going to start recording the video. The 2 products that we recommend are the UB size ring light with tripod. And then there's also the UB size 67-inch phone tripod stand and Selfie Stick. Every single one of these products has the longest name ever invented. So they're always a pain in the butt to read during these presentations, but there you go. If you do want to look them up, you're just looking for either of those. There's a whole bunch of them out there. So go for whatever you want. The big difference between those 2 is going to be that one comes with a light built in, the other does not. But the other one works more as a selfie stick. If you need it, you're obviously not going to want to use the one with a big honking light on it as a selfie stick.
That would be hilarious if we did. Jeff, that would be a TikTok video of its own.
Are you telling me to do it?
I just thought of it. Maybe we should grab one of these massive lights and be like, hey, everybody, how are you doing? Check out my new selfie stick. It's the size of a human.
I love it. Or we could tie strings to several of them and
Dude, Nick,
bring your whole light. You can bring your whole studio with you anywhere you go, right?
I would love that.
All right, cool. Well, this brings us to number 10. For those of you that are joining us here in Clubhouse, thank you so much for sticking with us until this point. We are streaming our audio from our LabCoatAgents webinar and sharing 10 of our favorite video camera, phone camera hacks. At the end of this, we are going to switch over to Clubhouse for anybody that wants to stick around and ask some questions and chat a little bit. And we will be there in just a few more minutes. All right. So number 10, this is the final one we're going to recommend to you. And then we got a couple last bonus things for you at the end here. We are going to give away the lapel mic. So make sure you stick around for that at the end. But this one is going to be a little bit trickier to do. And actually, I don't know if you have a handy, Tristan, because I just moved everything from one room to another. But do you have any of your Joby tripods sitting there? Any chance? There you go. You got at least one. Perfect. So here, let me just explain the idea and then you can demo how that thing works. Basically, you just want to get an overhead shot and then create a time-lapse video, right? So one of the ways you can do it is with the stand that Tristan has. So just give us a quick little demo there.
All right, so you see right here, it's a tripod that has bendable legs. So you can bend them around your car, a tree, Jeff's arm.
Your car? You can't bend it around a car.
You can totally bend it around a freaking car door. Okay?
Maybe a steering wheel.
The car door and the steering wheel. I already have great ideas just from talking to Jeff right now for some amazing TikToks, by the way. And the cool thing is, if you get the right Jobby or Joby, whatever you want to call this tripod, it has the top portion of it so you can shoot vertically or horizontally, and that makes all the difference for these. This piece right here is the one I use the most, and I have 3 of these, one in my car just in case I forget it, one on my desk, and one in my backpack.
Wow.
That's how important these are for me.
That's awesome. Well, there you go. I mean, that's a testament to how valuable that particular tool is. And this is one more thing you could potentially do with it. And that would be, so I mean, obviously the beauty of that particular tripod is you can kind of stick it anywhere, right? Because it'll just wrap around different objects. So what I'd recommend you do in this case is just find something on the ceiling you can sort of mount it to. Now, obviously, be careful, don't hurt yourself getting up on ladders and things like that. But if you could maybe even get it just attached to a ceiling fan. And then what I was thinking is, on the one hand, you can just get overhead shots, right? So again, thinking about like just getting a different angle. It's just an angle people have not seen. But then taking it to another level and doing a time lapse. I actually wanted to give you an example of how I use this exact process, right? So I was power washing I have a parking pad out behind my house. And I was power washing it one day, and it had been years, right? It was like long time since I cleaned this parking pad. So it's pretty nasty, right? So as you're washing it, you can very clearly see what's been cleaned and what hasn't. And so I got about halfway through and I did one half and I was like, you know what? I bet you could write words with the power washer as you go, but it takes a while, right? I mean, it's a pretty tedious process. So I grabbed one of my A-frame ladders that I have here, and I put a tripod. So basically, I sort of rigged up a tripod up on top of this thing. So it was probably like 10 to 12 feet up in the air, and then I angled it down, and I did a time lapse, and I just wrote some words. So I wrote learn video easily, and then I think it's a business video school below it or something like that. And it was really cool, right? Because it's a completely unique angle. Not something people are going to see very often. It was something that I was able to then, turn into sort of an advertising video for my business. And so where would you use that? I think things like open houses, or even if you have people coming through to do tours, right? You could just sort of record for a whole day even, and just get this super fast time lapse video from a really creative angle showing, maybe how many people you were able to drive through that listing or whatever it might be, right? So another version of this I might do is cooking. So if I'm going to be cooking something, you could easily mount the camera up above you, and both kinds of shots, right? Because I mean, cooking shows, you're often going to see a top-down shot, but even a time lapse of me just putting the meal together, that's kind of video that's just going to get a bunch of attention just because it is different looking. All right. Cool.
You know what I did once? People are talking about how you could attach it to your car. I duct taped my cell phone to the front of my Sea-Doo and did a time lapse on my Sea-Doo, and that was pretty interesting.
Oh, I like that.
That was good. Yeah, we had that in the first version of this presentation, so it was one of the ones we swapped out. But I did like that one a lot. That was a good one.
It's a good idea.
Thank God the duct tape held.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's a scary one. That's unless you have an old phone. Unless you're in a situation where you really want to upgrade your phone and you don't care.
That's very true.
All right, folks. Well, I am curious as we get wrapped up here, if you want to let me know in the chat. And just a quick reminder, we are just a few seconds away from giving away our lapel mic. But if you want to let us know in the chat what your favorite hack was today, I am always curious to hear that because it gives us some input and some feedback. We can always use that to improve in the future.
Mine was the cup.
The cup.
How can you not love that?
Yeah, I know, man. The cup's so good. Especially because I actually did it,
Based on the comments, the stop recording with the volume button was definitely a mind blower.
I don't know about that, Jeff. Let me see here.
There was a bunch.
Cup. I'm seeing cup. Oh, the rubber band, the volume button, the cup, the blurring flash. The most useful one that everybody should be using in all of your videos is editing the trimming part. The very first one. That's very true. Number 8. I don't even remember what number 8 was. The grid, volume button, flashlight, stop record. Dude, it's a mix. Wow.
Big mix, yeah. I think almost all of them got at least a vote or two. So not bad.
That's really good. I'm gonna have to say the cup's the winner just because everything tied it up.
Oh, just because you chose it, you
The
chose
cup's the
it.
winner.
Cup wins. All right. Hey. I'd vote for the cup too. I love the cup.
There you go, Jeff. We outvoted you.
Dang it. I'm going to go
All
do a
right.
TikTok.
So folks, I've got a couple more things to share as we wrap up here. I'm just going to let everybody know I'm posting some links into the chat right now that I think might be useful for some of you. There's 4 links. There's a link to go check out Business Video School if you want to learn more about us. There's the link to get on the video tips list. So you can either text in to 44222 and send learn video over to us, or you can use the link you see in the chat right now. And then there's also a link to a webinar we're doing next week. And I want to close things out by just talking about this for a second. So over the past few months, we've sort of taken everything we've learned through Business Video School in our first year, where we've worked with about 450 students already, and then all of our previous experience of working with hundreds of other real estate agents. And we said, what if we could just completely map out the entire process that would be necessary to implement video fully in your business, right? So not only from a marketing standpoint, but using video to communicate with people, to market your business, to, I just said that, but training, to communicate with referral partners. There's all kinds of different places you should be utilizing video. And so what we did is we basically went through and said, if you'd never made a video, from there all the way to the point where you've really fully developed video into your business and it's a habit, you can't help but utilize video on a regular basis. What are all the things you need to do and learn to get there? And so next Wednesday at 1 o'clock PST, 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Mountain Time, we will be doing a webinar to share that with you. So we're actually going to be walking you through all 3 of the stages, all the different components that happen in each of those stages, and then even give you some recommendations on what you should be trying to make to utilize the skills that you're learning, right? So that's going to be next Wednesday. It's at the same time. We tried to make it as convenient as possible. So the link for that is in the chat right now. And so if you want to hop over there and click on that link and get yourself registered for next week. If you are looking to implement video into your business, and I'll post all those links one more time, because I know we're getting a lot of people commenting and chatting, which is great. But if you want to join us next week, please go ahead and click on the link in the chat and get yourself registered, right? Okay, so we are at the end here. So I didn't forget, we're still doing our giveaway. You guys have anything else you want to mention or comment on before the giveaway?
Yeah. If you are not in Zoom and you feel like you're missing out, it's because you are. So you need to register for these things in the future. You can find us on Clubhouse and on Facebook, but if you're not in Zoom, you're missing out.
Absolutely. Everybody in Zoom has the most fun.
Definitely.
All right, folks.
Tristan.
Well, Tristan certainly has fun.
Hey, and if anybody needs a Clubhouse invite,
I'm here for the comments.
Shoot me a DM and I can help you with that. I think I have about 4 to give.
Oh, it's a good one. Hold on. I think I got a couple just in case we need them more. Because I had a little thing that popped up and said, "Hey, you got some." Yeah, I've got 4 also, dude. So, yeah, 4.
So you gotta DM us, because we have to have your cell phone. We have to have your contact in our phones, and we're not going to ask you guys to put that here in Zoom. So just shoot us a DM and we'll help you out.
All right, very good. We ready?
I'm ready. I'm
Good,
ready.
Good. Little drum roll.
Hey, by the way, before we finish, DM means direct message on Facebook or Instagram. Direct message.
All right, our winner today is Walter Payne. Walter Payne is the winner.
Walter, come on down.
Come on down. All right. So Walter, I'm going to send you my email address. Here's what I want you to do is I need you to send me your mailing address. All right. So if you can just go ahead and send an email to the one I just messaged to you. So check the chat. You should have just gotten a private message with my email address. Go ahead and send me your physical mailing address, and I will send that out to you sometime today. All right. So congratulations, Walter, on winning the lapel mic. We did put the link to the Clubhouse room in the chat. So we're going to hop over, at least I am, to Clubhouse here. If anybody else can join us, please come on over, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have a little bit of a conversation as we get things wrapped up here. All right.
Nick,
so
what was the 5-digit code to text, please?
So you want to send a text to the phone number 44222. So when you open up your text message app, the phone number, it's a short code. It's only 5 digits, 44222. And then what you send to us in the body of the text message is just LEARNVIDEO. All right. So I'm putting it back up on the screen here to make it easy. If you're on Clubhouse and you want to do the same, click on my face, go to the profile, and the information is also copied there as well.
And if you're still here, I got your cell phone number. I'll shoot you a text.
Ooh, yeah. If you get more than 4, Jeff, just send the other ones.
I will. See you guys on Clubhouse.
Cool.
See ya, everybody. Thanks for the red cup, Nick.
You're welcome. It's the best.